They didn't just end her life. They erased her name, her family, and her last chance to be believed, and the part no one talks about happened before the world ever heard her name. Stay with me, because the ending isn't the tragedy. What led to it is. If stories like this disappear, so do the warnings hidden inside them. Most people leave before the truth arrives. Don't be one of them. Subscribe now, before the story proves why you should have. Marie Antoinette was a daughter before she was a queen. She became a prisoner before she became a symbol. And in the end, she was neither. From that moment on, she was no longer seen as a person, only a problem that needed a public ending. The arrest came in the night. Not with drama, with procedure. The guards who entered the Tuileries Palace on August 10, 1792, did not apologize. They did not explain. They simply removed her from her rooms and escorted her to new ones, smaller, darker, colder. She was not asked if she understood. She was told what she had become. Widow Capet. Not Marie Antoinette, not Queen of France. A widow, a number in a ledger, a woman whose husband had just been killed by the state, and whose children had been taken to separate cells. The name change was not accidental. It was the first incision. If you are not who you were, you cannot claim what you were. If you have no title, you have no rights. If you have no rights, you have no defense, she asked once to see her children. The request was documented. It was denied. No reason was given, none was required, and what they were forced to endure next was never written into the official record. The room they gave her in the Temple prison measured 12 feet by 9. There was a bed, a chair, a small table, a single window with bars. She was allowed no privacy. 2 guards were stationed inside the room at all times. They watched her dress, they watched her undress, they watched her sleep. When she used the chamber pot, they did not turn away. This was not cruelty. This was policy. She was not allowed writing materials. No letters could leave. No letters could enter. Her children were 3 floors below her. She could hear them sometimes. Footsteps, voices, crying. She was not permitted to respond. The guards rotated every 8 hours. Some were silent, some were talkative, a few were polite. One brought her a flower once. He was reassigned the next day. She kept a strict routine. She woke at 6. She prayed. She ate. She sat. She prayed again. She slept. The routine was not for comfort. It was for control. Control was the only thing left that belonged to her. Fear is loud at first. Then it goes silent. Marie Antoinette cried for the first month. Then she stopped. Not because the pain lessened. Because tears require an audience that cares. The guards did not care. The walls did not care. Crying became a waste of energy she could not afford. She stopped reacting to insults. She stopped flinching when doors slammed. She stopped asking questions she knew would not be answered. The guards expected collapse. They expected begging. They expected hysteria. Women in her position always broke. She did not break. She simply became still. And that calm began to disturb the people who controlled her fate. She had 4 children. Only one was with her now. Her eldest son, Louis Charles, was 8 years old. He had been taken from her room and placed in a separate cell. A cobbler named Antoine Simon was assigned to re-educate him. The boy was taught to sing revolutionary songs. He was taught to curse the monarchy. He was taught to forget his mother's name. She could not see him, she could not speak to him, but she could hear him, and that was worse. Her daughter, Marie-Thérèse, was 15. She was in a cell nearby. They were not allowed contact. The girl wrote letters that were never delivered. The mother wrote letters that were never sent. Both kept writing. There was a locket. Small. Gold. It held a lock of her son's hair from before the revolution, before the prison, before the terror. She kept it under her pillow. The guards knew it was there. They did not take it. Not yet. That locket was the last physical proof that she had been a mother. Not a queen, not a prisoner, a mother. They survived everything, except the moment that came next. Stillness is dangerous to a system that requires visible suffering. If the prisoner does not appear guilty, the punishment appears unjust. If the punishment appears unjust, the executioners appear criminal. Marie Antoinette's silence was not defiance. It was exhaustion. But exhaustion, when performed with dignity, looks like strength. And strength, in a woman the revolution needed to destroy, could not be tolerated. They needed her to be a monster. She was becoming a ghost. Something had to change. On October 14th, 1793, she was taken from her cell and brought to the Revolutionary Tribunal. The room was packed. Spectators lined the walls. Journalists filled the benches. The air was thick with sweat and anticipation. She was seated alone, no lawyer beside her, no family behind her. Just a woman in a black dress and a white cap, surrounded by men who had already decided her fate. The charges were read aloud: treason, conspiracy, depletion of the national treasury, correspondence with foreign enemies. Each accusation was met with murmurs from the crowd. She did not react. Her lawyer, if he could be called that, was given one day to prepare. He did his best. It was not enough. The prosecution had months. They had documents. They had witnesses. They had a script. The first day of the trial lasted 15 hours. She was not allowed to sit except during breaks. She stood. She answered questions. She denied nothing that was true. She refuted nothing that was false with emotion. She simply stated facts. The crowd grew restless. They wanted tears. They wanted rage. They wanted the Queen to beg. Then the accusation changed, and even the people who hated her hesitated. The prosecutor stood. His name was Jacques-René Hébert. He was known for viciousness. He had accused priests, nobles, and moderates. He did not lose cases. He looked at Marie Antoinette. Then he spoke. He accused her of committing incest with her own son. The room went still. Not silent. Still. There is a difference. Silence is the absence of sound. Stillness is the presence of shock. Marie Antoinette did not scream. She did not cry. She did not stand. She simply looked at Hébert. Then she looked at the tribunal. Then she spoke. "I appeal to all mothers present." That was all. 6 words. She did not elaborate. She did not defend. She did not explain. She simply appealed to the one thing that transcended politics: motherhood. Several women in the crowd turned away. A few began to cry. Even some of the guards shifted uncomfortably. Hébert's face flushed. He had overreached. He knew it. The tribunal knew it. But the trial did not stop. Overreach does not matter when the verdict is already written. Public doubt flickered. Authority panicked. Momentum had to be crushed fast. The trial ended at 4 a.m. on October 16th. The jury deliberated for 1 hour. The verdict was announced without ceremony. Guilty, sentenced to death. Execution scheduled for later that same day. Marie Antoinette did not react. She nodded once. She was escorted back to her cell. She had 16 hours left to live. She did not ask for a priest. She did not ask for a final meal. She asked for paper and ink. The request was denied. She asked again. It was granted. She wrote one letter. It was addressed to her sister-in-law, Madame Elizabeth. It was never delivered. The letter was found in the coat pocket of one of the guards years later. It was 4 pages long. It did not beg. It did not accuse. It asked only one thing: that her daughter be protected. What happened after the ruling was never meant for the public to see. A priest came at dawn, not the one she requested. Those loyal to the monarchy had been outlawed. This one had sworn an oath to the revolution. She accepted him anyway. They prayed together. She took communion. She did not ask for forgiveness. She asked for strength. At 7 a.m, the executioner's assistant arrived. He carried scissors. He did not speak. He did not need to. Her hair had been kept long in prison. One small defiance, one small piece of her former self. He cut it short. Not gently, not cruelly, efficiently. The hair fell to the floor in pale blonde clumps. No one swept it up. Her hands were tied behind her back, rough rope, tight enough to restrict movement, not tight enough to cut circulation. They needed her able to walk. She was given a plain white dress, not the black morning gown she had worn to trial. White, the colour of martyrs and brides. The revolution did not see the irony. The message was never meant to survive. And for years, it didn't. This wasn't about necessity. It was about erasure. Everything that marked her as royal was removed. Her rings, her locket. Her shoes were replaced with plain wooden clogs. Her dress had no embroidery, no lace, no distinction. She was no longer Marie Antoinette. She was Widow Capet, and Widow Capet had no claim to dignity. One guard tried to tie her hands in front of her body, a small mercy that would allow her to steady herself in the cart. The executioner refused. Hands behind the back, no exceptions. She did not argue. She simply turned and allowed herself to be bound. At 8 in the morning, the cart arrived. The cart was open, no roof, no sides, just a wooden platform on wheels pulled by a single horse. Marie Antoinette was made to sit facing backward, forced to watch where she had been, not where she was going. The streets of Paris were lined with crowds, thousands of them, men, women, children. They had come to see the Queen die. Some shouted, some jeered, some threw refuse. She did not turn her head. She did not acknowledge them. She kept her eyes forward, or rather backward, staring at nothing. One woman in the crowd spat at her. The spit landed on her dress. Marie Antoinette did not wipe it away. She had no hands to wipe with. A journalist named Jacques Louis David sketched her as the cart passed. The drawing survived. It shows a woman with short hair, a gaunt face, and an expression that can only be described as distant. Not afraid, not angry, just gone. They were surrounded by noise, but inside something had already gone quiet. The cart ride took 1 hour. The distance was less than 2 miles. The executioner drove slowly. The crowd needed time to see, to jeer, to remember. When the cart finally stopped, she was at the Place de la Révolution. The scaffold stood in the centre, 15 feet high. The guillotine waited at the top. The steps were steep. Her hands were still tied. The executioner offered no assistance. She climbed alone. At the top she paused, not from hesitation, from exhaustion. She had not slept. She had not eaten. She had not been allowed rest. Climbing 15 feet with bound hands after an hour in a cart is not symbolic. It is physical. She reached the platform. The executioner was there. His assistant was there. A priest was there. No one else. The guillotine stood in front of her. The blade was raised. The lunette, the wooden brace that holds the neck, was open. She looked at it. Not with fear, not with resignation, with something closer to curiosity, as if she were studying a door she was about to walk through. The executioner gestured toward the plank. She stepped forward. Then she stopped. She had stepped on the executioner's foot. It was an accident. A stumble. Nothing more. But she stopped. She turned, and she spoke. "Pardon me, sir. I did not do it on purpose." Those were her last words. Not a plea, not a prayer, not a curse, an apology, to the man about to kill her. The executioner said nothing. There was nothing to say. She was positioned on the plank. Her body was strapped down. Her neck was placed in the lunette. The wooden brace closed around her throat. She did not struggle. She did not scream. She simply waited. The blade fell. The crowd roared. Not in celebration, in relief. The thing they had feared, the symbol of the old world, was gone. The revolution could continue. Her body was removed from the scaffold. Her head was shown to the crowd. A few cheered. Most simply stared. The corpse was placed in a wooden coffin. No ceremony, no prayer, no family. She was buried in an unmarked grave in the Madeleine Cemetery. Quicklime was poured over the body to speed decomposition. The grave was not marked. The location was not recorded. No honour was given. For 22 years, no one knew where she was. Her name was removed from official records. Her children were placed in separate facilities. Her daughter survived. Her son did not. The locket, the one with her son's hair, was taken by a guard. It was sold. Its location is unknown. The letter she wrote to her sister-in-law was never delivered. It was found in 1816, folded in a coat pocket, yellowed and creased. It is now in a museum. The revolution moved on. New enemies appeared, new trials, new executions. Marie Antoinette became a footnote, then a myth, then a cautionary tale. But myths are not people, and footnotes are not graves. In 1815, after the fall of Napoleon, the restored monarchy began searching for the remains of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. It took months. The Madeleine Cemetery had been closed. The records were incomplete. The graves were unmarked. But someone remembered. A gravedigger. A man who had been there the day she was buried. He pointed to a spot near the wall. They dug. They found bones. 2 sets. A man and a woman. Testing was primitive, but the size, the age, the location, all matched. In 1817, the remains were transferred to the Basilica of Saint-Denis, the traditional burial site of French royalty. A tomb was built. White marble. Simple. Her name was carved into the stone. Marie Antoinette, Queen of France, not Widow Capet, not a number, a name. Truth returned slowly. She was not a saint. She was not a villain. She was a woman born into a system that used her, displayed her, and discarded her when she was no longer useful. She spent money she did not earn. She lived in luxury she did not question. She made mistakes that cost lives. But the trial was not about her mistakes. It was about what she represented. The prosecution did not need her to be guilty. They needed her to be gone. Her final words were not a defense of her reign. They were not a condemnation of her executioners. They were an apology for stepping on a man's foot. That apology outlived the revolution. It outlived the empire. It outlived the men who killed her. Because in the end, cruelty is loud, dignity is quiet, and history remembers what it cannot explain. Most people hear stories like this once and forget them forever. That's how these things keep happening. If you don't want the next one to vanish too, subscribe now, because silence always protects the system, not the victims. History gave them a label. After hearing everything, what do you give them?